Frances Farmer was once Hollywood's radiant star, her smile melting millions of hearts, hailed as the new Greta Garbo. But that glamour was a trap. Behind the silver screen, she was bound in a mental hospital, submerged in icy water, rumored to have had her mind stolen by a powerful blade. Was she truly mad, or a victim of a ruthless system bent on extinguishing her rebellious fire, from a 16-year-old's essay challenging God to her lonely final days in a hospital? Frances's story is a haunting tragedy, where Hollywood and medical power wove invisible chains, who pushed her into darkness. Her mother, with hidden family secrets, or Hollywood, with conspiracies never revealed. Join me as we uncover the darkest pages, where Frances's screams still echo, defying the world. Was she a victim, or a warrior who never stopped fighting? Chapter 1. A rebellious girl daring to challenge power. Her hands were bound in a mental hospital, her eyes blazing but helpless against cold walls. Frances Farmer, once compared to Greta Garbo, had fallen into shadow. But her rebellion didn't start there. It began with a 16-year-old's essay questioning God. Seattle, in the early 20th century, was draped in misty rain. Frances was born into a turbulent family, where her gentle lawyer father always yielded to her mother, Lillian, who ruled like a domineering queen. After her parents' divorce, Frances lived between two worlds, never calling any place home. Her mother, Lillian, read Longfellow's poetry each night, but in her voice. Those verses sounded like verdicts, not poetry, but law. I just wanted a home, Frances confided to a childhood friend, her voice trembling. But Lillian, with her steely gaze, never gave her that. Frances grew up with an unyielding spirit, but also a crushing loneliness, like a suitcase left on a train platform. At 16, Frances wrote God Dies for a national contest. She questioned why did God save her favorite hat, but let her friend's family perish in an accident. The essay won. But it set Seattle ablaze. Churches branded her a heretic. Newspapers labeled her West Seattle High's monster. I don't need anyone's approval, she told a friend. But her eyes betrayed the pain of isolation. Each criticism was a knife, carving society's rejection into her soul. In 1935, at 21, Frances defied Lillian to join a Soviet Union trip funded by a progressive newspaper. On the ship's deck, she dreamed of Broadway stages but saw poverty and great art in Moscow. A relative said Frances sent a letter home, but it never reached her family. Rumors claimed it was intercepted. In it, she wrote, "I'm afraid they're watching me." Lillian called her a family traitor. Was Lillian jealous of her daughter's free spirit? Or did a family secret push Frances to the margins? Frances stood on a Manhattan platform, luggage light but heart heavy. She went to the Soviet Union. Why did a 21-year-old dare? Who really funded it, and why? After, did she never land lead roles despite being hailed as her generation's brightest talent? Frances challenged the world. But did she realize rebellion's cost? Or was a greater conspiracy awaiting her? Chapter 2. Hollywood's bright star where tragedy began. Hollywood thought they'd found the new Greta Garbo, but for Frances Farmer, that spotlight cast a long shadow leading to a life controlled. In 1935, the 22-year-old stepped into fame, signing a 7-year contract with Paramount Pictures. In Rhythm on the Range, she starred with Bing Crosby. Her smile melting audiences. Come and Get It launched her to the top, with critics calling her the generation's brightest star. She glows from within, one wrote. But Frances hated Hollywood. Lavish parties, empty roles, at a Paramount gala. She stood quietly in a corner, clutching a drink. Smile, Miss Farmer. A producer whispered, but she stared ahead, as if wanting to burn the room down. I'm not your puppet, she said, not loudly, just a whisper to herself. On Come and Get It's set. Frances worked with director Howard Hawks, who listened to her. But when Hawks was replaced by William Wyler, she rebelled. I'm not a doll for you to control, she shouted, rejecting Wyler's suggestions. Co-stars whispered, she's too proud to back down, as a 1983 article noted. Frances craved true art, not the glamorous girl roles Paramount forced on her. Lillian called from Seattle, voice cold as steel. "Don't shame me, do as they say." Frances hung up, but her mother's words were a tightening rope. After a scene, she pulled a crumpled letter from her pocket, scrawled in trembling ink. "I can't be what Mom wants anymore." Frances drove a beat-up car, lived in a modest house, and shunned Hollywood parties. Paramount retaliated with lesser roles, as if to choke her fire. "She won't last long," a producer whispered, eyes cold. Why was the director switched for her defiance? Why were lead roles pulled on someone's order? And why did the one person she trusted, her mother, want her silent? Frances stood on set, lights bright but cold, like an invisible cage. She wanted to be herself, but Hollywood wanted a puppet. She touched fame. But why did she feel strangled by power, like a bird trapped in a gilded cage? Chapter 3: Romances that poisoned her career and fate. That night, flashbulbs flared in the Knickerbocker Hotel bathroom. Frances Farmer Bear was dragged out amid screams and lenses. The press called her the screen's disgrace, but to understand why, we must return to a telegram and a tearless abortion. Frances once believed in love, but Hollywood and those closest tore her heart apart, making her a victim of a ruthless system. In 1936, Frances married Leif Erikson, another Paramount actor. "This marriage is cheap publicity," she told a friend, voice bitter, when she got pregnant. Erikson pushed for an abortion, fearing career damage. As the doctor's cold tools touched her, Frances didn't cry. She stared at the ceiling. "I lost everything," she whispered, as if to the child never born. In 1942, they divorced, and Erikson remarried quickly, a dagger to her pride. A friend said she never mentioned him again, but her eyes held pain. On Broadway, Frances found light in Golden Boy 1937 to 1938, but fell for Clifford Odets, a married playwright. She loved him fiercely, believing he understood her artistic hunger. But one cold morning, a telegram cut like a blade. "My wife's back. We shouldn't meet." Frances doubted. Odets had promised to leave his wife. Now he vanished, as if never real. And the play's funding, it kept flowing. "I was used, a pawn for fundraising," she confided, tears streaming. Betrayal's pain drove her to drink. The bottle was her only friend that stayed. In 1942, scandal struck. Frances was arrested for drunk driving, violating wartime dim outlaws. "You bore me," she snapped at the police. A hotel worker said before police arrived. A strange voice called the front desk, asking for Frances's exact room. "She's drunk. Undressed," the voice said coldly. "Who called? And how did they know so much in court?" she shouted. "I put liquor in milk, coffee, and orange juice. Want me to starve?" When the judge demanded silence, Frances stood tall, eyes blazing. "You can't take my voice," she said. Though she knew Hollywood was readying her next cage. Hollywood called her mad, the press called her shameful, but someone set up that scene. Frances thought she was betrayed, or was she sacrificed? As love and fame crumbled, would Frances rise or be crushed by the system? Chapter 4: Screams in a Mental Asylum's Chains. Frances screamed in the courtroom, not from pain but knowing she'd be locked away for life. Western State, a pit of snakes, was just the visible part of the nightmare. In 1943, after attacking a set hairdresser and throwing ink at a judge, Frances was committed to a mental hospital by her mother, Lillian. "She's out of control," Lillian declared. But a friend said Frances just wanted freedom. Doctors diagnosed schizophrenia, a pretext many later suspected, to douse her defiant fire. "I'm not mad," Frances screamed, but her voice drowned in cold walls. Medical power chained her, a prisoner of a brutal system. They shaved her head, strapped her to a steel bed, and left lights off for 18 hours daily. When Frances asked the time, they didn't answer. When she asked her name, they laughed. Insulin shock therapy sent her into brief comas, her body trembling as if broken. Electroshock made her convulse, as if her soul was torn. Hydrotherapy soaking in icy water for hours left her numb, eyes pleading silently. "They want to erase me," she wrote on a crumpled note hidden under her pillow, a cry no one heard. 1940s hospital conditions were barbaric patients treated like animals, caged in violent wards, identities stripped daily. In her second year, Frances stopped asking, stopped writing, stopped dreaming. She stared at a rusted wall stain, counting water drops from a metal pipe as if counting pieces of herself stolen. Her autobiography later described horrors. I was bitten by rats, chained in a cell, soaked in cold water until I felt nothing. But her co-writer, Jean Ratcliffe, may have exaggerated for shock. Still, Western State's reality was grim enough, a prison destroying body and soul. The most terrifying rumor came later. Frances underwent a lobotomy, a barbaric procedure by Dr. Walter Freeman at Western State. William Arnold's Shadowland claimed she was made a living corpse, but the book was backed by Scientology, a group viewing psychiatry as an enemy. So, who twisted the Truth family and medical records deny a lobotomy, if she had one? How did she act? Marry? And host TV later? Did the hospital hide a horror? Or did Scientology and Hollywood exploit her for their agendas? Frances lay on a hospital bed, eyes empty yet faintly defiant. She survived. But was it her body? Or a ghost wearing her name? Chapter 5: A Fight for True Freedom. Frances was released from the mental hospital, but no one told her freedom had been granted 2 years earlier. They kept silent, leaving her a prisoner unchained. In 1950, Frances Farmer walked out of Western State Hospital, frail but eyes still fierce. Her mother, Lillian, held guardianship, an invisible rope tightening around her. In 1953, a court revealed Frances was declared free in 1951, but Lillian never told her. "They want me caged forever," she whispered to a friend, voice thick with resentment. Hollywood had turned away, labeling her insane, denying her comeback. Lillian controlled her guardianship and all her mail. Did she hide the freedom order from 1951? Frances fled to Eureka, California, living as Frances Anderson, a photography shop clerk. She tried erasing her past, but each night, a bottle soothed the pain of society's and family's judgment. Alcohol was her only loyal friend. In 1957, Leland Mikesell, a salesman, entered her life, believing she could shine again. For the first time in nearly a decade, Frances sang on the Ed Sullivan Show. Her voice trembled, but each note broke an invisible wall. Audiences clapped. Tears fell. But Frances saw only the lights, like the judging eyes of old. She thought, "This Is Your Life" in 1958 would honor her. But the spotlight stripped her bare, the host forcing her to relive pain before millions. You sank into drink and despair. The host's voice rang, and Frances bit her lip, eyes flashing anger. "They want me to replay my pain," she told a friend, feeling Hollywood pull her back to darkness. She married Mikesell, but the marriage crumbled, another unhealed wound. Hollywood still shunned her, as if keeping her in an invisible cage. Before a mirror, the face once radiant on screen was shadowed by time. "What did I do wrong?" she whispered. But maybe the fault wasn't hers. Frances tried to rise, but could she escape Hollywood's and her mother's shadows? Chapter 6: Fragile Happiness, Final Peaceful Days. In Indianapolis, they called her the Gentle Star. No one knew she'd screamed in asylums, endured shocks, or starved on liquor. But Frances smiled, as if hell never existed. From 1958 to 1964, she hosted Frances Farmer Presents, a local hero. She was elegant, like she'd never been hurt, a viewer recalled. She befriended Jean Ratcliffe, who brought rare stability. Jean didn't pry into the past, didn't touch the shards, but Jean, keeper of the autobiography manuscript. Churchgoer with Frances, was she a friend or final warden? They turned an old farmhouse into a warm, colorful haven, where Frances found fleeting peace. She converted to Roman Catholicism, finding solace in faith, and began her autobiography, reclaiming her stolen voice. But alcohol's shadow didn't relent. In 1964, she was fired from her show for drinking on air. "I tried, but it's stronger than me," she told Jean, voice heavy with regret. In 1970, esophageal cancer struck. In her final days, Frances lay in a hospital bed, sunlight streaming through a window. She looked like a young girl, radiant, fearless, a friend said. She died on August 1st, 1970, at 56, leaving an unfinished autobiography. Frances lay there, sunlight on her cheeks, like a girl asleep. But her eyes told another story. This sleep wasn't freedom, just a pause after a lifetime without rest. Frances found light. But was she truly free before leaving? Or did power keep her in shadow? Epilogue. Legacy symbol of resilience and tragedy. Frances Farmer didn't die in the hospital. She died first, when her voice was taken and replaced with a mad label. From then, she lived as a ghost reflecting power's cruelty. After her death on August 1st, 1970, her autobiography Will There Really Be a Morning was published, recounting her unlawful confinement. Some details, rat bites or chains, may have been exaggerated by Gene Ratcliffe for shock. The 1982 film Frances with Jessica Lange retold her tragedy. But the lobotomy scene and ice pick through the eye was pure fiction. William Arnold swore Frances was lobotomized, but in court in 1983, he admitted it was fabricated by Scientology to fight psychiatry. She was perfect for our campaign, a member said. Thus, an icon was born from a lie. Nirvana's Frances Farmer will have her revenge on Seattle, made her a rebellion symbol. She's a warrior, Kurt Cobain said, resonating with millions of youth. But what's Frances's true legacy? Hollywood labeled her mad for defying a system where women had to obey. Her mother, Lillian, who committed her, made her a prisoner of a brutal medical system, and 1940s medical power, with shocks and hydrotherapy, destroyed her soul. They wanted to erase me, but I'm still here, she said, eyes defiant. Frances warns of power's cruelty from Hollywood to asylums. She reminds us those who dare to differ are often crushed, yet their voices echo. Did Hollywood send her to the asylum as an example? Did Lillian hide family secrets to control her? Her final days' mysteries remain unsolved, but Frances screaming in court, eyes ablaze, is a symbol of defiance against power. She screamed. No one listened. But today, you're listening. What do you think if the world stays silent again? Will you scream for her? Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to explore more stories of those who challenge the system.